everyone, and welcome to another video in which I'm going to speak to an industry figure about the current situation. Today I'm speaking to Julian Harvie, who is from Nikon UK, and he's actually the head of marketing for Nikon Northern Europe. Hi Julian, how are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You look very well, nice and warm in the sun there.
I am extraordinarily warm. I'm sitting in a conservatory, which feels a lot more like a greenhouse in the spring sunshine. But yes, no, I'm doing well.
And obviously that's not your normal place of work.
It is not, no. We have all been working from home for, I think, a little over 3 weeks now. All the days seem to be blurring into one. But no, we are all working from home now at Nikon, yeah.
So obviously Nikon was quite quick to respond to, actually, because that's before the lockdown started. You obviously started working from home quite early on.
Yes, we had actually tested well ahead of time our ability to work from home as an entire business. Obviously, with a little over 100 people in the UK office, we needed to make sure that all of our technologies worked kind of all at the same time. So we sort of slightly stress tested that ahead of time. And then when the first announcement came out saying all non-essential travel should be kind of avoided at all costs, that was the moment at which we took the stance as a management team that at that point it was better for all of us to be working from home. So I suppose, yes, that was a few days before the official lockdown began.
Okay, and in what other ways has the current situation affected Nikon?
Well, I suppose like any other business, now working as a team, both kind of individually with my marketing team, but also more widely as a kind of larger group in Nikon Northern Europe, we have been having to rely on the internet and on video conferencing a lot more, relying on working alongside each other in spite of some of those kind of conflicts or difficulties of working from home and technology. From a kind of wider business perspective, business continues in a similar way, but clearly there has been a retail impact as a result of the coronavirus ongoing global pandemic. Again, I think what our sales team have done is taken a really strong view that we need to look after our retailers as much as possible, help them adapt to what the ongoing situation is, and ensure that as much as possible we can support them so that they don't get into any more trouble than we all are.
So how is that manifesting itself?
Well, I suppose, do you mean how is the drop in retail manifesting itself, or how is our support manifesting itself?
How is your support manifesting itself?
Well, I mean, I suppose the first port of call is for us to be as transparent and honest and open as possible with ongoing information as it comes in. Clearly, this is a very dynamic, very fluid situation. So we basically respond to government advice. We try very hard not to second guess anything that either government or our health services are recommending us. And equally, we get a lot of information from the wider Nikon company with regards to things like supply from a lot of our products. You know, the vast majority of our products are built, are prepared and created in the Far East. And clearly with the drop in planes flying, not to mention like various other supply chain issues, that clearly has a knock-on effect on what we are able to supply and how we're able to supply that in the UK and the Nordics. Now, we obviously, as soon as we get that information, then relay that to our retailers in as meaningful a way as possible. But at the same time, we work with, as a commercial team, we're working with those retailers to understand what opportunities there may be instead, to alert our consumers to either good opportunities, like good deals that are going on cameras that do exist, or making sure that we up our supply chain where relevant with products that could be sold in lieu of a different product.
Okay. Are you seeing any particular products being of significant interest at the moment? Obviously, overall sales are down, but are there any models that people are sort of looking for?
I mean, ultimately, we haven't necessarily seen anything that has shown a dramatic shift in what has normally been desired by the consumers, by people as an ongoing product need. What I would say, as I think most of the photography industry knows, is that, you know, mirrorless is our biggest growing category. It's the biggest growing category in photography, and that hasn't necessarily changed in light of this. Clearly, Nikon Z series is a high performing mirrorless category. The growth for us is certainly coming there, and with our new mirrorless lenses and the Z mount systems. We do also have a huge kind of DSLR following, and a real love for some of those DSLRs. And I think what's interesting, what I'm interested to see, is that as a result of some of the work we're doing online at the moment, it will be interesting to see how many people are quite keen to actually pick up their cameras again now that they're at home, and reinvest some of that time in their passion points, and reinvest and spend a little bit more time thinking about things that they can do and kind of creative outlets that they can have, in spite of us not being able to do all the other things and having all the other freedoms that we used to.
What about cameras that were just coming to sale, like the D780 and well, the D6 isn't actually in the shops yet, but are either of those being delayed?
Yes, so the D780 is in store already, and actually we have some supply of that product. The D6, unfortunately, is delayed at the moment. At the moment, the best knowledge that we have so far is that both the D6 and there are 3 lenses that are kind of coming up as well, will likely be delayed until the beginning of May. But at the moment, that is the information that we have. And as I said, it's a very fluid situation, and as we don't necessarily know when this lockdown is likely to end, and equally when other countries, because as a global brand, we rely on kind of global supply chains, you know, we can't be totally sure. We totally understand as well that the D6, you know, a product launch of which we're very proud, and we know that a lot of photographers were very interested in. We do want to get that out, and particularly to our most important kind of consumers, guys who've been on waiting lists for ages and ages now. We want to make sure that we do deliver that product. But I hope everyone can see that at the moment we all need to kind of bandy together and show each other a little kindness about how we're able and when we're able to supply these new launches.
Yeah, I think my impression is that there is quite a good understanding of that sort of thing at the moment. People are realizing that, you know, we are in very unusual circumstances, and, you know, even just ordering something that you would normally get from the internet, you know, it's taking, well, it's not necessarily available, or it takes a bit longer. And I think people are understanding that situation. So hopefully they'll extend that same understanding to cameras like the D6.
I think so. I've been really blown away, not just by some of the kind of consumer responses that we've seen to messaging that we've put out, but also certainly internally and even amongst friends and family. Like, the adaptability of human beings is profound, and our sense of goodwill for the most part is phenomenal in a time like this. It, for me, is a really important kind of self-isolation silver lining to hold on to. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned trying to help and encourage people who are thinking about picking up their cameras while they're in lockdown. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the campaign that you've launched?
Yeah, of course. So to give this a bit of context, I suppose, obviously from our perspective, without being able to be truly focused on supplying information around launches, because we don't yet know when those things are happening, or supplying kind of new key bits of information on upcoming launches, again, because so much of that timing is now slightly on hold. What we wanted to do instead was take as an understanding that there is a huge amount of our community across the whole of Europe that is now not just under self-isolation and lockdown, but also in a state of probably some are feeling quite challenged, possibly quite low on morale, possibly quite bored if they haven't got much to do inside. And with that as a kind of general consensus, what could we do? How could we pivot to provide our wider photographic community, a community of huge talent and huge creativity, with basically a means or a focal point through which to pick up their cameras and engage at a kind of broad level during this kind of very unique moment in history. I think as an industry, let alone as a camera brand, we are in an incredibly fortunate position, almost a unique position, to be able to document this moment in time in an incredibly meaningful way. And what we've done, therefore, is create a campaign called Create Your Light, which is essentially us intending to provide a medium through which, or a campaign through which, anyone with a camera, and at the moment, I see no reason for us to be anything other than as inclusive as possible. I don't mind what camera you're shooting with. I don't mind if you're using a camera phone. Providing a means through which people can learn. So every week, every 2 weeks, we will create educational content of tips and tricks that people can try out and learn from while they're stuck inside, while they're at home. So they can learn, they can then create off the back of a challenge that we will set them. So they can have a real focal point, a real theme around which to attempt some specific type of photography. And then they can share that so as to drive some kind of positive impact, share their creativity, and also share their unique perspective on how, you know, their family, their nearest and dearest, who they are self-isolating with, what does that world look like, and how can you share that feeling with the rest of the photographic community in a meaningful way. We've had this launch for not quite 2 weeks now, and the first theme was called Shooting with Window Light. And then we basically challenged people to take different types of window light, but in particular to try and create silhouettes. This is launched in 12 different regions throughout Europe now. I'm pleased to say that this was something that originated in the Northern European team, but now has been taken on by the wider kind of Nikon European community. And we've seen a huge amount of engagement already. The hashtag Create Your Light has been used tens of thousands of times already in a 2-week period. And it just goes to show that if you provide our photographic community with any kind of focal point around which to aim their lens, like, there is literally no end to the talent and creativity that I've seen, certainly on social media, off the back of launching this. So what we really intend to do is to keep this campaign alive and kicking, make sure that we're taking inspiration from every single photographer out there that we can lay our hands on, and really provide a core point of interest for anybody interested in photography while we are all on lockdown.
And how do people get involved?
So they can you can get involved on social media. We will be posting our educational content at the beginning of every 2-week period. So the next piece of content will go out on the Nikon UK Nordic and the Nikon Europe Instagram, Facebook and Twitter channels next Tuesday, just after Easter. It is also available on the Nikon Europe YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch all of the previous videos as well. We're also in the process of creating a landing page, the Create Your Light landing page on the Nikon website, where a gallery of our favorite submissions will be put up as basically a lasting tribute to, and a kind of legacy to, the unique creativity that the photographic community can come up with during this very challenging time.
So is the theme still silhouettes until next Tuesday?
The theme is sort of window light / silhouettes up until Thursday, end of play.
Okay, great. I look forward to seeing some of those pictures. I mean, it's fantastic weather conditions at the moment for shooting that sort of thing.
Yeah, great fun. I mean, honestly, I'm following the hashtag now, and every time I scroll on my newsfeed, which seems to be more often than not at the moment, I am just blown away by some of the creativity, some of the creative shots that people are putting together. It's so cool to see, and I think if we can, in some small way, contribute to people feeling a little bit more motivated, feeling a little bit more purposeful about, you know, what they're doing with their downtime, or even not with their downtime, if they're working really hard on their photography, then we would have done our job with this campaign.
And have you seen any other sort of positive impacts of the current situation?
Honestly, from a Nikon perspective, I touched on this earlier, but I've been really, really moved and kind of blown away by the sort of can-do attitude and positivity and adaptability of my team and of the wider Nikon community. And I don't think it's a unique story. Speaking to friends and family about how they are adapting to the situation, I've been really moved by how quickly humanity seems to be able to kind of band together and work on kind of sorting stuff out. Whether it's Joe Wicks doing online gym classes for, you know, 1 million people, at 1 million children at a time, or my wife's catering company pivoting to do kind of delicious deliveries on a weekly basis, with some of them going to NHS staff, you know, as a means of looking out for them. I think there is so much good to be seen from this, and my hope is that when this is all over, we may find some ways to remember and learn from, and continue to do some of those elements, and bring some of those things back into kind of regular normal life. I've certainly found myself picking up my camera a lot more in the last few days. I think not just because I wanted to be involved with Create Your Light, but also because I think with the natural slowdown of the pace of life, we've been given the opportunity to think about what matters to us and what is important to us, and some of those real passions like photography or those creative outputs, we can suddenly kind of lend a bit of brain power to, lend a bit more time to thinking about a bit more. And I personally hope I don't forget what that feels like to be able to take that time to do that, because I think in the very busy pace of life that we normally lead, we can too often forget that is out there, and then that is important for us too. So I suppose a slightly vague response, but I'm certainly seeing lots for me to think about positively.
Well, I think one thing I've noticed is obviously that people are now having to focus just on their own homes and in a confined way. So you have to be creative within a relatively small area, and that really forces your brain to think. And you start to see images in places that you don't normally see them, which has got to kind of increase your observational powers, I think.
Sure, absolutely. I've seen people using kind of, and actually myself, using sort of interest, like props that I might never have considered, kind of as props, to see what I could do in a photographic context. And actually, we've started something internally as well in our Nikon kind of as a company called Together at Home, where each week somebody sets a new theme for basically publishing or showing the rest of the team, showing the rest of the community what is going on in their current situation. So last week we had workstations, and it was, we just said, we want to see where you're working from these days. Of course, some people sent pictures in of, their laptops on the kitchen table, but some people got incredibly creative with what their response was, and they had pets all over the place, and they had little Lego figures that belonged to their children that were kind of stacked up and making some kind of a beautiful scene with their screens and their mice and their keyboards kind of in place. And again, I just think it puts such a smile on my face seeing that kind of creative output coming through on such a kind of regular request, just to see what everybody's workstations look like. And I think those things do go a long way to helping us at Nikon feel like we're still part of the same company, the same team, and that we're all still working together. Ultimately, I think for lots of big brands and lots of big companies, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges is keeping all of our teams feeling like we're still part of a team, and feeling like we're still kind of motivated and feeling positive and purposeful together.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of people who've never used any kind of video conferencing system getting on board with it now. I sent a friend a smartphone so they could communicate with their mother in her mid 80s. People are suddenly having to learn new technologies, and I think that's not something that's going to go away. People who've maybe been a little technophobic are going to discover some real benefits to it, and actually it does help us connect in a very different way at a time when you can't see other people. I think that has a very positive impact.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I don't think I've used video chat in a personal capacity, I mean, nearly as much as I have in the last few weeks, and not just kind of not just in a sense that I really needed to talk to people, but in a way that, I've got friends who live on the other side of the world, or in different time zones or foreign countries, or just like the other side of the country, who I've been more in touch with in the last 3 weeks than I was before that. And I think, again, I wonder whether, as you say, those barriers to video conferencing that might have existed before psychologically have just been stripped away because of their absolute necessity now. And actually, we're just being more in touch with people than ever before. Possibly, again, because we feel more connected because of this pandemic that we're all kind of suffering together. I suppose one technological fallout that I'm a little bit concerned about is my mum has discovered memes for the first time in quite a meaningful way. And she is now just sending so much crap that she finds on the internet around the family WhatsApps. And that can be a little wearing, I suppose, but great that she's discovered them.
There has to be a downside, I guess. So just as a final question, which camera are you actually locked down with at the moment?
I have my trusty Z6, nice. Which is a camera that continues to have far more brain power than I do in terms of what I think I'm capable of doing with it. But as I say, spending more time with it in the last few weeks has really given me the opportunity to kind of test out its metal a lot more. I've been recently I have a dog at home, which is great. Just the most wonderful distraction. And I've been recently trying to get into, as spring flowers seem to be erupting on some of the very short walks we've been allowed to go on, kind of getting slow-mo video of this dog flying through kind of primroses and finding that great fun.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I'm finding more valuable than ever at the moment is the Nikon SnapBridge app, not just because I can do kind of remote control, but also the auto link function just means that all of those pictures that I'm taking on this amazing camera just fly straight onto my phone. And then if I do want to share them with my friends and family or stick them up on Instagram or whatever it is that I want to do, I can do that. I can do that kind of immediately without having to kind of plug it into a computer or whatever. So yeah, it's a very welcome distraction. And it is just, yeah, the more I play with it, the more impressive the piece of kit seems to feel for me.
Great. Well, I mean, it is a really good time to, you know, if you've got a camera, to pick up the manual and just flip through and think, right, what have I not used? Let me try that. And like you're saying, trying to shoot slow-mo or something like that is a really good idea, or create time lapses, or, you know, shoot in a different aspect ratio or anything like that. But I think your camera's manual or your camera's menu is a really good point to start if you're looking for, you know, a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think starting with the manual is a good place to be. I also just think as an industry, we are profoundly lucky to have the kind of fan base that we do, so that if you do go on YouTube and you type in sort of any question or any kind of how to, if it isn't Nikon that's supplying it itself, there is bound to be another incredible photographer who's got some amazing tips on how to make the most of specific elements. I know that there's a lot out there on all of our Z models. So there's a lot of time that you can spend down the YouTube rabbit hole, kind of learning as much as possible as well. And again, I suppose, you know, that's the biggest thing we want to be able to deliver with Create Your Light is just giving people free, like no paywall opportunities to just learn in a very specifically kind of resonant and relevant way. We are all united in a very challenging situation, and we are all essentially in the same environment, which is our home with restricted access to, you know, things like landscapes or wildlife, which we might have been wanting to shoot before. And so providing some form of inspiration, but then also the real education, the real tip around which to create and to kind of be inspired to shoot yourself. That's what we're really going for, and that's what we hope we can deliver.
Great. Well, thank you very much for talking to Camera Jabber today. It's been really lovely to see you and to speak with you. I'm going to go and look out for some of those slow-mos of your dog running through the primroses now.
Do. I'll be sure to upload them and not just keep sending them to my mum.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you.
Bye-bye.